right, thank you, everybody. We have a really great panel today, and we want to talk with you about ways to participate in the council, but we also want to just get a nice snapshot of what's going on throughout Europe, look at some of the threats, look into the future, and find out what's on the horizon, and then also just talk about kind of the current state of payments in Europe, and then talk about all the ways that the members of this panel participate with the council. Everybody up here participates at a very high level, and we wanted them to share all the activities that they do. With that, we'll do introductions. I'll begin. I'm Mark Meissner. I'm the Senior Vice President for Education and Engagement for the council. And I'll turn it over. I'll let everybody introduce themselves. Naveed?
So Naveed Islam, Chief Security Officer at Dojo. We're a payments acquirer focusing on the small to medium enterprises.
So my name's Simon Turner. I work for BT. We're the UK carrier network, and I run the security and governance assurance team within BT.
I'm Vane. I'm the InfoSec Compliance Director for Checkout.com, a global service provider operating around the world.
And I'm Jeremy King, part-time MC and part-time regional VP for Europe.
Jeremy, you look familiar. I've seen you all week. Well, let's start with the first question, and that is, what are the major challenges that you're seeing for payments throughout Europe? And I'll start with Naveed, and let's work our way down.
So I'm not so sure they're challenges. I'll call them opportunities, right? So we've seen a massive uptake or demand for mobile payments, especially in the market that we operate in, which is, as I said, small to medium organizations, and especially in the hospitality sector. A lot of them want the mobility. So the chip and pin machines are well established, etc. But over the years, they want mobility to waiters to be able to go from table to table. So we basically invested a lot of time in mobile payments. So specifically, what Jeremy, you famously called 5 years ago, pin on glass, I think it was, or tap on glass. So being able to take payments on essentially any mobile phone. What the PCI Council released the MPOC standard for example. So that's the big one we're seeing. And the other one that, speaking to schemes, etc., that we're also looking at is open banking, exploring the possibilities of open banking and what we can do with that for, both our merchants, but also what's the appeal for the consumers.
Okay, Simon?
Yeah, so if I take it from the merchant side, then we're kind of split into two. We've got service provider offering, and I look at what the business is trying to do with selling, and the move to more abilities to do mobile payments as well. And then if we look at the merchant side, then we look at things like open banking, something the business is wanting to move to, or looking at our different streams where we've got contact centers, retail, and really looking for the easiest way to take payments, so the most frictionless ability to take payments. And I see the business really pushing on what they might be able to do in the future. So they're kind of our challenges that we're seeing.
Okay, good. Joe?
I think in addition to what the other members of the panel said, with having a global presence, the evolution of the alternative payment methods is a very interesting opportunity because there are so many ways, shapes, and forms it takes today that I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, good.
Well, I don't get a go then.
You can. Sure, go ahead. You can.
Thanks, boss. I gave you that really good introduction, and then you're like, yeah, I'm going to blank him.
Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mark. You see, so I live in a small town in Cheshire, and that is my barometer of what's happening in the payment. So a few years back, I was in the butcher's, and the person in front of me got their card out and paid with contactless for the first time. I was like, wow, contactless payment. And it worked beautifully. And they tapped and went. I'm like, cool. Contactless has made it to Cheshire. Fantastic. And then a little bit later on, I'm in a different shop. I'm in the baker's. And the person in front of me goes to the pay, and they get their phone. And they pull up the wallet and pull out their card and tap that. And it works. And it's fantastic. And then just last weekend, we had a maker's market. So I'm going around there with my wife, and this stall has got the best cakes. I mean, we are talking chocolate, serious chocolate, seriously chocolatey. I'm having one of those. So I'm like, I'll take one of those, please. She was like, would you like to pay with cash or card? Because obviously now, accepting with mobile payments means all of these stall holders will accept payment by card. I'll pay with card. She pulls up her mobile phone. I'm like, hello, payments on mobile. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. She pulls up the app. Okay, if you tap there, it works. straight through. Thank you very much. Just at that moment, and it doesn't just rain in Ireland, in Cheshire, near Manchester, it rains equally hard. The heavens open, it starts throwing it down. We just hide under the awning. So I've got 2 minutes like, so how do you find that? She was like, I love it. She says, it is easy, it is quick, I've got a good mobile connectivity, I just call it up, it taps, it works, the payments go through into my bank account quicker. What is not to love? I'm like, thank you. You are now my prime example of why we've moved to putting payments on mobile phones. It makes life easier. And I said, so have you had any kickback? Has anyone gone, hang on a moment, I'm holding my card against your mobile phone? No, absolutely not. It looks like a payment device. It's got all of the right logos on it. It puts the amount, I tap, I get the green dots and a tick. It's gone through, dead easy. And I'm like, yes, we're there.
That is a great example of how payments have changed over the years, that's for sure. That's a good little local focus group that you've got there. I want to ask you about current threats, because we hear a lot about threats throughout Europe. We've heard a lot about phishing attacks, especially. I know there's concerns related to artificial intelligence around potentially making phishing attacks very difficult. Certainly social engineering and ransomware attacks. So what are you seeing as the current threats, and what are the things that make you worry at night? I'll start with Naveed.
So actually some of the stuff has been, this conference is really great because a lot of the topical issues are being covered here. So John Elliott mentioned this yesterday around skimming of websites, the JavaScript issue that MageCar have been exploiting for a few years. In our market, we're still seeing a lot of that. It's not new, but for the small to medium merchants, I think, as Jamie said this morning, if you just want to trade, you basically just spin up a website, right? And you want to be able to take payments. You don't consider all of the complexities in there. So we've seen those attacks being on the rise because a lot of small merchants just spin up websites with whatever the plugins are, and before they know it, there's scripts on there, and bad guys are doing what they're doing. AI is an interesting one. Jenny mentioned smishing, as in SMS phishing and also voice phishing, so phishing as well. We're seeing a rise in that as well. It's becoming more and more realistic. So while AI has a lot of good uses, from a human perspective, and what we're seeing in our merchants, and just as a consumer, what I'm worried about, especially for people like my mother, is things like the phishing threats. So those are a couple of common ones that we're seeing at the moment.
You mentioned MageCar attack. The council did a really nice industry threats bulletin on that topic a couple of years ago, and that's still on our website. It's a great resource. Simon, what are you seeing?
So first of all, I'm going to say that storeholder must have been using EE as a network, having Signal.
That was a plug, I think.
Yeah, new EE. Yeah. And I'm going to talk a bit about internally within BT. We do kind of like our own hackathon type event within there, which I attended recently. And there were two examples that stick in my mind really well. And one of them was account takeovers. You know, in our contact centers, we're having a lot of people phoning up trying to do the fraud and doing account takeovers, etc. So that was highlighted as one of the biggest. And we actually listened to a conversation where they were trying to use the whole, you know, was it pressure, urgency, authority, and really trying to, you know, overcome the agents. And then on the other side, we've got in the retail environment that we're talking about where we've got our retail stores. And obviously, we're getting phone calls, believe it or not, into the retail stores by someone who's the IT support person from within BT, obviously knows the language and knows the names of the systems that we're doing, and trying to convince the store manager to install a piece of software for remote access to get on there. And then the recording was, we've got someone who's obviously done our training, awareness training, thought this was a bit suspicious and called it out, and the attacker changed tack then. And it was more of, okay then, well, you're on minimum wage, I'll give you a £10,000 lump sum payment now to install this software. So we're kind of, as we're protecting and securing the perimeter and the e-commerce, and we're using, obviously, you know, cards with authentication, then they're going back to the old social engineering side, and we're seeing quite a bit of an uptake on that.
Yeah. Joe, what are you seeing?
Absolutely, social engineering, all the phishing we've been talking about for the past 3 days. I think especially in light of PCI 4.0 becoming a thing, we see more and more attacks related to phishing, smishing, and their little relatives, but also a lot of user awareness increasing. So I think It's a threat, but we also have the opportunity to do something about it.
Yep. And Jeremy, you talk to a lot of stakeholders all throughout Europe. What are you hearing?
Pretty much the same as what the guys have been saying there. And I think as Jamie was saying, the people, the process, the technology are our best defense. And it's really great to see, especially when you're down in the vendor showcase, some of the tools, some of the options available to try and help counter that. I think one of the most interesting changes has really been the role that you guys, Naveed and Joe, are playing, because you can be focused on security. You are security experts as well as providing a great service. A lot of the merchants will say to me, Jeremy, I'm really good at selling, but I'm terrible at security. And so they've been able to utilize all of these great services. I think my big fear and the threats is that then they think they've got nothing left to do, and they have. They are still the people in this. They can still be socially attacked, and you've all said that. So making sure that they still realize there are some things you have to do. You don't have to do as much because you're using the great services provided, and they're generally, taking security very seriously, but you still have a part to play in that process. And the criminals know that, and the criminals know they can get at you, as Naveed said, through all the script skimming and various ways through your organization. So you still have an important part to play. So be aware of security. Keep the people aware as well. As you said, Simon, if you've trained someone and they go, hang on a moment, that doesn't feel right, and they flag that, that is brilliant. That is really great to hear. And the more we can train people to be like that, because the criminals change tack, they're into socializing and, trying to do that way as their way in. So yeah, people are really important. The criminals are still out there and still being evil.
So I'll stay at that end of the group and work our way back for our next question. So a lot of people come to our events because they kind of want to get a window into what's coming on the horizon. Talk a little bit about what you think the future challenges for payments in Europe are going to be. And I'll start Jeremy and work this way back.
So we have one or two challenges. For those of you who are here from the UK, we're no longer in Europe. We Brexited. That is in itself a challenge. And part of that challenge is, again, sort of cross-border. Cross-border has been a huge challenge all across Europe. Anyone who thinks Europe's just a region, it is 32 individual countries that all have legacy systems. Legacy systems are, goodness me, one of the biggest challenges for payments, because all those old systems need data in the right way. And again, that's where you guys come in, because you can accept all these different payment methods and bring them through. And I think it is knowing how the consumer is going to want to change how they pay for things. And we're seeing that with the COVID took us away from cash toward contactless and took us toward more wallets. And now on the wallet, you can have your credit, your debit. You could probably have, going forward soon, a digital currency. So there's a million different ways you can choose to pay. And enabling that choosing of payment becomes a challenge for not only the merchant, but also the service providers in there. And for us as well, it's like making sure that our standards are going to be relevant and appropriate to ensure the security of that payment data, however you choose to pay. And that's why we've been reaching out, and that's why we've set up the Principal PO program to encourage more involvement, so we can get from you, this is what we're seeing from our customers. This is the pull that we are feeling from our consumers. This is what they want. How are we going to do this in a secure way? So the future challenges, the future opportunities, as Naveed said, are massive. The challenges are right behind them, and that's part of what we as a community have got to work on. And we're going to achieve that best if we do it together. So, keep that input coming, keep feeding us in where we need to be, because that's going to help us make sure our standards are relevant, appropriate, up to date, and everything you need from us.
And Joe, what do you think about the future?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, not enough time to talk about them, but if I would have to pick one, I would definitely say AI. Because when we started as a PPO, I remember one of the first discussions, we were all, AI is coming, oscillating between doom and excitement. And I think it's such a massive opportunity. We can learn with it, and we can use it in our advantage, but the problem is the bad guys do the same. So it's up to us to come together, and make sure that, like Jeremy said, the standards match the challenges in the outside world.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any conversation that I've sat in that AI doesn't come up at some point. I know it's on a lot of people's minds. Simon, what's your thoughts on the future?
Corralling all the incubator programs that are coming up within BT. My team, we've got a number of processes where we get all these ideas, and the business is really looking to how can they take payments in different ways and make the customer journey easy. So if we take, for example, the customers, the call centers, taking to your point, the Apple Wallet, how can we get a customer at home on the phone to send a payment to their mobile and just use the wallet? So, those are really good challenges. In the retail stores as well, how can we use a tablet, so tap to glass, to enable the payment function when we're stood there in a retail store trying to make it, this friendly environment. So rather than going to try and find the pad that's locked away in the back because some PCI team told me I had to secure it, can I just use my tablet? So yeah, and then your AI bit. I mean, I did some research on this before coming on the event, and it technically says internally we've been using AI since the 90s in order to do our time allocation for the OpenReach engineers. So, and the business, we've got data scientists. I know what a data scientist does now. So really it's, what is the business doing and what are we looking forward to? So my team are really having to, and one of the things I like about the events here today is what are the challenges, what new technology is there, and what advice and guidance can I give to the wider business?
Yep. Naveed, what are your thoughts?
So as Jeremy said, in his focus group in Cheshire, I think you said it is, with the small market. So contactless is old now. Chip and PIN has been in Europe for years. Mobile payments is now here, and it's going to be widely accepted. As I said, everyone's looking at it because of the frictionless journey it gives. Alternative payments is something they're going to have to start considering, especially things like cryptocurrency. Is there a demand for it? For example, open banking, what are the use cases? Where does it make sense to pay by card? Where businesses may want to implement open banking? But AI, right? I don't know how many events I've been to in the last 2 months. Every single thing's AI. There's a lot of good things with AI, a lot of companies investing in the defense side of things, that hackers will use it for bad things. I guess the council's going to have to come up with something eventually in time around guidance standards, the inclusion of AI, but it's up in the air at the moment which way it flips, but that's going to be the big challenge going forward. Just which way AI goes and how it impacts the payments. As I said, bad people use it for the bad things. We as the defenders there, I say, and educating the market, will have to use it for good, but at the moment it's that's a ChatGPT didn't exist until about this time last year, and now it's almost become part of the dictionary. What happens in the next year, 2 years, etc., is still unknown.
I think it's interesting you talk about AI being used for good, because so much of the reporting you read about is all the potential downside. So it's nice to hear that. Naveed, I want to stick with you. Your company is part of our inaugural Principal Participating Organization program. That is a group that we have a lot of high hopes for as far as helping us steer the strategic direction of the council moving forward. Explain to everyone a little bit about what being a PPO involves and why it was so important for you to be a part of it.
So, as an acquirer, we've been a PO for many, many years now. And last year's community meeting in Milan, I think it was the PPO concept was introduced, and I think I pinged Jeremy the next week going, what is this? I want to know more. Look, we like to be at the cutting edge of things because we focus on the small to medium merchants. It allows us to be more innovative. So at the same time, we're very conscious of the PCI standards that are across the board, so not just DSS, but P2P, PIN, MPOC, and others. What this gives us is the ability to primarily participate in two major groups. One is the RRG, the Roadmap Roundtable, which allows us to kind of have a voice in the shaping of where the council is going, not just around standards, but guidance, etc. And that's almost like a horizon-setting thing. We just talked about some of the challenges. How can the council help address that? Or what part can it play in addressing it? And the second one is a technology guidance group, the TGG. And again, a lot of the things such as P2P, MPOC, PIN, etc., allows us to have a voice earlier on in the drafting process and put our thoughts out there, give the voice to the merchants that we represent around the challenges they may be seeing so we can influence the standards going forward before it gets to RFC, etc. Those are the two big ones that allows us to, as I said, get involved and then ultimately give voice to both my organization, but a lot of the 100,000 odd merchants that we represent.
Well, it's a group I know we are really excited about. and excited to see the work that they produce. Simon, I want to jump to you. You're a really active member. You're very active on our board of advisors, and you're also a PPO. As a multinational telecommunications company, why do you participate at such a high level with the council?
Yeah, same what you said. Joking. One of the challenges I have is we're very context switching in our role. We're doing one thing 1 second, another thing. So we have I like to think we've got quite a variety of data coming through the team. And I want to be able to feed that back to the council, because there's always certain challenges I have that I can't find answers. Look at, how we're going to do things in the future. So for me, it's being able to come back into the organisation or the standards body and make suggestions about where we should be going. It's about sharing those experiences that we've got there, sharing the knowledge, and then being able to drive the future of what standards might be, and so on. But I guess overall, the desire, because we've been a PO for quite a long time as well, so the desire is to make sure that we're doing our utmost in protecting the payments for our customers, making sure that we're at the forefront. As an organisation, we have objectives to being involved in the standards bodies as well. And I think if you're asking me how to get new members to join, maybe we need to free Pringles, just saying.
More Pringles.
Joe, let me ask you, you're both a PPO and a Board of Advisor member. Tell us a little bit about the role in the Board of Advisors, because that's a different body that gives us good advice and guidance. Why is it important for Checkout.com to serve on the BOA, and what do you feel you get out of it?
A very wise person once told me that if you want change, you have to be part of it. And we absolutely believe in that. I think our culture always told us you have to represent your merchants, you have to represent your customers, get out there, be the voice, communicate their concerns, find out ways to help them, educate them, increase awareness. All of these things are part of being a member in the BOA. And realistically, you get to interact with so many industry leaders, with so many SMEs. You get to learn so many things. Who wouldn't want to be part of that?
Yeah, no, that's very true. Jeremy, just real quick, tell everybody just briefly about your role with the council and kind of what you do in Europe.
So I am absolutely passionate about payment security, about trying to keep your organization safe. I'm also absolutely passionate, and I've been since day one when I joined the council in 2010, about having a strong European voice in the council. Because one thing I've learned, and I really share this and work with my colleagues, Yu Kwan, who's joined as the regional VP for Asia Pac, and Wen Lok Free, who's now the regional VP for North America, is we know that payments are subtly different around the world. And if we just have one voice, oh look, I've gone left a bit from the UK, that dominates, we're not going to have all of the right viewpoints, or it won't be really applicable to everybody around Europe and the rest of the world. So to be here with these great panelists representing fantastic organizations from Europe, involved at the highest level of the council, giving the council great direction, that is success for me. Having the largest ever number of registrations here for a community meeting in Europe, having all of you wonderful people here participating and giving feedback and gaining involvement about where payments are going and how to secure them is amazing. And I feel like that has just been brilliant. The support I've received makes my job the best and easiest job in the world, because it is just great to be able to take that feedback, funnel it into the council, and then use that to try and improve things. And now, because we've got you guys on our principal POs, on the RRG, on the TGG, on the Board of Advisors, we're now getting that global voice directing the council forward to make sure we're going to protect payments going forward as they change. And that is so important at the moment. We are seeing that change coming. So my role is just to go around and go, guys, get involved. Guys, participate. Guys, feed things up. You can do it. Don't be afraid. We're all here. These guys have all joined us, and they're just ordinary people. Apart from Simon. Simon's I've known Simon for a few years, though.
Pringles.
No, but seriously, oh yeah, don't worry, I will reward you all with Pringles later on. But yeah, that's it. It's just trying to get that European voice heard, and you are heard loud and clear. So thank you very, very much for that.
And Jeremy and I get the privilege of working with a team that is spread out all around the world and is really balanced. It's an exciting team to be a part of with the council. Naveed, let me ask you real quick. You're a major player in payments with a really deep understanding of UK payments at its core. Talk to us about the importance of the global reach of the council. Why is that important in the UK marketplace and throughout Europe?
So I'm actually going to expand from Europe. So we're expanding into Europe, I should say, and move away from the UK and expanding into Europe. What it gives us, the PCI, not just the standards, but the guidance and involvement, it gives us a level of consistency globally, at least in Europe and going forward. Interesting, I was at a restaurant last night and the guy basically bought a chip and pin machine and he started asking me about cryptography. It got me thinking, a lot of the technology that's embedded and is certified or validated using the PCI standards gives, as a consumer at least, I'm not now talking about Dojo, I'm talking about as a consumer, gives me the confidence that wherever I go in the world, what I'm doing when I'm either tapping, putting my card in, making an e-commerce payment, there's a level of security just built in, right? So it gives me the confidence to be able to make that transaction. So that's what the PCI Council does. It writes those standards. It basically has all those different training programs. Also importantly, I've learned in the last few years, the regulators look at the PCI Council and the standards as de facto best practice for payments. So I've been to tribunals, etc., talking about stuff that I don't want to talk about anymore. But essentially, the regulators kind of go, PCI is the de facto standard, you should be doing that, or why weren't you doing that, things to that effect. So the global reach means there's one consistent way of doing things, which, as I said, gives consumers the confidence. It makes us as an acquirer, our life easier to manage the merchants across the globe, but also the regulators look at it. So the council has a huge job, and it needs to continue doing what it's been doing.
Good. Simon, you, as I mentioned earlier, you participate with the council at a really high level, but obviously not everybody can do that. What would you say to someone who isn't a participating organization? We do have some folks here this week that are not POs, but they're involved in payments, but they're not a PO. What would you say to them on why they should be involved in the community? What's the value of it?
Well, I guess coming back to what Joe said, if you're not involved, you're not going to have a voice in the game. So I guess there's different levels of engagement as well. For the individual member, there's the associate, and then there's obviously the principal. And I guess we do find it really handy to have the ability to talk to others in the community as well, especially events like this week. Being able to go around and speak to people. It's definitely one of the key takeaways from myself, as well as keeping up to date with some of the sessions on future technologies. But yeah, I guess my final bit is just encourage the community to get involved and join in with the crowd of amazing people that we work with.
Yep, I think the being involved is really important because while somebody may not be able to participate at a BOA or a PPO level, being a PO gives you a voice, it gives you access to information, gives you access to others in
gives
your
you access
industry.
to Jeremy as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. Well, in the interest of time, I want to move to our last discussion because it's something I don't think we talk enough about. But this really is a community, and in a lot of ways, it sometimes feels like family. We're a lot of things. People come to these events, and we don't often talk about the fun part of being part of the payment community. We have events in great places like Dublin and all over the world. So I wanted to just take a minute to talk about some of the fun parts of what we do. And I'll start on this. I've gotten to see the world in this job, traveling all over the world. And I have really enjoyed the time that I've been with the council because you make a lot of great friends. I get to bring my wife on trips where she's joining me on this trip, and we're going to travel around Europe a little bit. So I wanted to just take a minute, talk a little bit about the fun part of this job. Like, what are the fun things that you've done related to the council? I see people out at bars and at our community reception, slapping each other on the back, laughing, making friends, making good business connections. Just take a minute and talk a little bit about that. What's kind of the fun part of the job?
Similar to yourself, Mark, I love traveling. So coming to community meetings essentially gives me the opportunity to go to various cities. And so since 2016, I think some of the pictures that I've been to Barcelona, Milan, Washington, I wasn't part of the infamous walking group. I did walk myself. But as I said, it's a networking event where you get to, dare I say, you can, down here, over a drink or non-alcoholic in my case, essentially make connections which are not always to do with work. We're wrapped up in talking about payment security, but then you get to know people for who they are. And that's what essentially helps you, as you said, make the long-lasting relationships.
Yep. Simon?
Yeah, so apologies when my photos come up, because that was not mine.
They were mine.
There's
we go.
Simon's.
Apologies to the people in the photos. But yeah, I mean, again, you know, I love the evenings. I think we need to make it a few more days longer because there's not enough time to fit everybody in, so takeaway. But no, I really enjoy meeting up with people at the events and catching up, especially when you've been over to North America and say Washington. I have missed Andy's walks this week. I'm not sure whether he's done any, but yeah, I've stayed away because Washington, Jeremy and I had a splinter group and we got back for midnight before everybody else. So no, I think it's definitely about the networking for me.
Yep. Joe, I'll give you the last word because we're out of time. This is your first community meeting. What's your impression?
I have taken pictures. Pictures have been taken last night that I will submit for next year's presentation.
Good. Good. Well, thank you, the panel. Thanks to all of you. For those of you that aren't a PO, we would really encourage you to visit our website or reach out to me directly. We'd love to talk with you about being involved. For those of you that are POs and involved with us, thank you very much for your participation. We couldn't do all of this without all of you. With that, we'll wrap up, and I just want to say thanks and hope everybody has safe travels home.